Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the workshop on the open category. The aim of this workshop will be to provide you some technical information, some more detail on the regulation in the open category, and also to answer to all your questions. So we will be 3 persons that will participate to this presentation. And so we'll split the presentation in 3 parts. The first part will be dedicated to the operational requirements, so the requirements that are in the regulation 947. And we will have a short presentation, 15 minutes, and then we will give the possibility to ask questions through the Slido. And you can see the Slido code is HLC stream A. Then the second part will be dedicated to the requirements for the drone to be operated in a specific category that will be covered by the C-class mark. And then Antonio Marchetto, that is our technology expert in EASA, will provide a presentation on what are these requirements. And also after the presentation, we'll have an additional 15 minutes time to answer to your questions. And finally, we will have a presentation by Christophe Mazel, that is the chairman of the working group in ASD-STAN that are developing standard for the requirements for the drone in the open category. So he will provide a presentation, giving you an information on what is the process to develop the standard and an update of where we are. And also after that, we will have additional time for questions. So I think that we can start. So let's start with the requirements for the open category. You may know that we published the 2 regulations, the regulation 945 for the technical requirements for all drones to be operated in the open category, and for the requirements for the country operation. The reason why we had to have a split between the 2 regulations is because the requirements we had from the European Parliament was very clear on 2 different methodology to approve regulations based on the topics of the regulation. So there are 2 possible type of process. One is called implementing act. The second one is called delegated act. So from a content point of view, there is no difference. It's just in the process that the 2 acts needs to be undergo in order to be approved by the Commission and by the member state. So the splitting is only for this, not because there is a different way to write the regulation. So the first one is for the technical requirements, and this one was adopted in June and entered into force on the 1st of July. So this means that potentially today, a manufacturer may already put on the market a drone with a C marking. In order to facilitate the development of C marking, we need to have a standard, and then we will see as this done where are on this process, but potentially we can already do today. The second regulation was the implementing act, the regulation 947, that provides the requirements for the operation and for the registration of drones. Also, this regulation entered into force the 1st of July, but the applicability has been postponed of 1 year in order to give to everybody, member states and industry, to organize themselves to be ready for the regulation. And we will see later how the applicability will be then organized with the transitory measures. And for this regulation, we published last month a set of acceptable means of compliance and guidance material, and this is on EASA website. So where you can find the methodology to be compliant with our regulation, especially for the risk assessment. We publish in this document the SORA, the Specific Operation Risk Assessment, that is the one that we propose to use for the assessment in the specific category. So the first important step that an operator needs to do is to register themselves. And I want to stress, register themselves, not register the drone. Because the requirements we had from the Parliament, European Parliament, is that we can only mandate the registration of the drone when the drone is certified. So it's not never in the open category. Then in other case, we just have to ask the registration of the operator. So when the operator needs to register, in the open category, every time there is using a drone with a maximum takeoff more than 250 grams, when the drone is lighter than 250 grams, but is equipped with a sensor able to capture data that are sensitive for privacy. So we're talking about a camera or microphone. Or when there is a high-speed drone, I talk about drone that in case of impact with a person can transfer an energy more than 80 joules, so can be dangerous to people. So just to give you some figure, for a drone of 250 grams, we are talking about a speed of 130 kilometers per hour. So essentially, this shows that the operator needs to register themselves almost in all cases, because almost all drones will have at least a camera. The only thing that are excluded are toys. So if a drone is compliant with the toy directive and is below the 250 grams, then the registration of the operator is excluded. And the registration is something that should be done through the member state, and will be a web-based operation. So we believe that we are trying to organize an interoperable system such that the registration will be simplified. You go to the web page of your civil aviation authority, and then you can register yourself. Okay, and the specific category then will be for all operators, but we are just covering the open category here. So what are the main elements of the open category? So general requirements is that the operator needs always to keep the drone in sight. So always be able to see where is the drone and make sure that he is separated from other obstacles. So if they see another aircraft flying, he needs immediately to land, to take action, because the responsibility of the operator or the remote pilot, so it depends, in some cases the remote pilot and the operator are the same. In other cases, we can have two different entities between the remote pilot and the operator, but would be the responsibility of who is conducting the drone to give the way to other manned traffic. Then operations are always below 120 meters. 120 meters from the takeoff point, so using the orography of the area where you are flying. And in general, we have maximum takeoff mass less than 25 kilos, and the minimum age is 16-year-old. However, member states may authorize in their nation to fly also with for people that are up to 12-year age. However, this limitation is only valid in their state. Still, under supervision, everybody can fly if there is someone meeting the requirements that is supervising the underage person. Never carry dangerous goods or never drop in material. And important, no autonomous operation in the open category. When I say autonomous operation, I mean operation where the aircraft is capable to fly without the intervention of the pilot. I'm not talking about automatic operation. So this means that I can still upload some flight plan, and the aircraft is flying by itself, but I need always to keep the aircraft in sight. If there is any problem, all the time I need to be able to take control and maybe land or do something different that was not planned. Okay. And then in the open category, we identified 3 subcategories depending on what kind of drone you are using. And here is where the C marking is using and is very effective in Europe for us. So according to the kind of drone that you are using, you can fly either in subcategory 1 over people, or 2 close to people, or 3 away from people. What does it mean? When you will buy a drone, you will find on the drone one of the symbols from C0, C1, C2, C3, C4. Then we'll see later what their content. And according to them, and then there will be also a leaflet that will tell you the most important information, where you can fly, where you cannot fly. And then the training that we will see later will give you some additional information. But in general, for example, if you are using a drone C0 or C1, C0 is up to 250 grams, C1 up to 900 grams, you can fly over people. So in urban environment, avoiding to fly over crowds, so you cannot fly over stadium, but you have very little limitation for this category. And also if you have a privately built drone, so without a C marking that you build by yourself, and is below 250 grams, still you can fly over people. If instead you want to do something more, so maybe you want to have a drone that is a little bit more heavy than 100 grams, you can buy a C2 drone that is up to 4 kilos. And in this case, you can fly close to people. This means that you can fly up to 5 meters to people, so not directly over people, but up to 5 meters, or 30 meters, depends if on board you have a low speed mode. And then you can do some professional operation with this kind of operation without asking, having any authorization by no one. So you just register and fly. And instead, if you are using a drone that is heavier, up to 25 kilos, then there will be C3 or C4. The difference between C3 and C4 is only that in the C4, it's a special category that we developed for model aircraft, but still is below 25 kilos. Or if you have a privately built drone up to 25 kilos, in this case, you need to fly in an area where there is no one involved person in the area where you are operating. So these are drones that for which the technical requirements are a little bit less complicated, so maybe it would be cheaper drone. And the counterbalance is that you have very strict operational limitations, so you cannot fly everywhere, never in urban environment, so 150 meters from city, and in an area where there is no uninvolved person. What kind of training is needed for this kind of drones? First of all, if you are in the C0, so C0 is below 250 grams, where maybe there will be several toys, and where we expect that also there will be a lot of kids that are using this kind of drone, so we don't ask for any special training, just the familiarization with the manufacturer instructions. If instead you are operating a drone of category C1, C3, and C4, or the privately built up to 25 kilos, here we ask some training. And there will be an online training provided by the NAA with an online test at the end of the training. So also here we try to be as much as effective as is possible, with reducing as possible the cost. So everything should be done online, trying to find the good balance. And in our regulation, we identify the minimum topics that needs to be covered. If, at the end of the training, the NAA will release a proof of completion of the online training, and this will include a number for the remote pilot that will indicate that the remote pilot passed the test. And it can happen that when you are flying somewhere, a police officer may ask you if you have the needed training to do that operation, and this is what you need to show them. Now, this can be done, can be something that will be just online, so we don't expect that should be something that printed that you need to take on your pocket, but an electronic form will be enough. If you are in the category C2, then in addition to all what I said for the category, for the class C1, C3, and C4, we ask the remote pilot also to conduct a self-practical training. So it's not a formal practical training in school. You can do by yourself. And during the training, the online training, the the pilot is instructed on how to identify an area that is safe enough to conduct this kind of training, and then he can do the training in an area where there is no one, where it doesn't pose any kind of risk. When the pilot feels that he's ready to now to fly in category C2, so close to people, he needs to go to an entity recognized by the competent authority, declare that he completed this kind of practical training, and then he needs to pass an additional written test in this entity recognized by the competent authority. So this is a second step, but this will allow you to fly close to people. This is the most risky operation that we have in the open category. So, and here you will have a different kind of certificate. It's the remote pilot certificate of competency. So, just to recap, the pilot will have the proof that he completed the remote pilot certificate of competency or the online training with a number that will be registered in the database of the member state, showing that he completed the test. And this is a sort of driving license that we have, all of us. While instead the operator, as I said before, needs to register himself. So, and is a different number. So the operator, when registered himself, he received this number, and this number is the number that will be associated with the drone. So it's like the car plate. And actually, you will see in the presentation later that this number will be also broadcast by the electronic identification. So this means that the police will know that the drone operated by Mr. X, that is under this number, is flying somewhere, maybe legal or not, I will identify. And then this drone under this registration number may be operated by pilot number 1, pilot number 2. So there are two different numbers, okay? Let's see the timeline. So the entry into force was 1st July, and the applicability is 1st July 2020. So what will happen until that date? And before July 2020, the national regulation will still be applicable. So you are still going to fly like you are used in your national environment. Then after 1st July 2020, our regulation will be applicable. So the first thing you need to do is to register yourself according to the European regulation. And here the member states are already working to update the registration system and verify if there is any Delta registration that will ask to you. But important is that by that date, everybody is registered according to the European regulation. Then this registration will be interoperable. So you don't need to register everywhere in Europe. When you are registered in your country, this registration will be valid all over in Europe. Then, at beginning, since in 2020, we don't expect that we will have already drones compliance with the C marking. So we will have, as a transitory measure, the possibility to fly the drone without C marking for what we call the limited open category. So in the open category, we mean that you will fly, for example, in over people if you have if you have a drone up to 500 grams, or you can fly close to people, this time 50 meters, if you are drone up to 2 kilos. And instead, with drones that are more than 25 kilos, you need to operate in an area where there is no one. So for the first 2 years, you can fly without any need for authorization in this condition when you complete the training that at this moment is required by your member state. Also because this new training according to European regulation needs to be complete and developed in the next months. And then what will happen that after 1st July 2022, instead, we expect that we will have drones with the C marking available on the market. And so the open category will be fully deployed. And so you need to apply in full, as I described before. what will happen to the drones that I bought before 2022 and are without CE marking? I can still use it, I don't need to throw away. They will be considered a sort of home built. This means that if the drone is below 250 grams, I can operate it over people in subcategory 1. If it's above 250 grams and below 25 kilos, I can operate in subcategory A3, so in an area where there is no one. And this is the date, 2022, is when the manufacturer are obliged to put on the market only drone with the CE class mark when they are supposed to be operating in the open category. So the manufacturer needs to decide if what is their target, if they want to target operators that they are flying in the open category or in the specific category. If they are in the open category, then it needs to have the CE class mark. And in addition, by this date, also we give the possibility to model club and association to have a special authorization to be able to operate with limitations that are exceeding the open category. So we give maximum flexibility to NAA to authorize whoever is flying within a model club and association with limitation that they think that is safe. So to summarize, in the open category, so this will apply since mid-2020, but then there will be a transition period until 2022 when we will have the full application of the open category. The registration of the operator is essential. Only drones that are certified need to be registered. So in the open category, you never need the registration of the single drone. And the concept is that you buy the drone, register yourself, and then train, and you fly without asking for any additional activity or request to the NAA. So this is a way that we try to simplify from one side, but also to ensure that it's a safe environment, safe, secure, and also we address some privacy concern to make sure that the public will accept the operations that are conducted over their head. So this is the last slide of my presentation. Now we can go to the questions. Let's see. Huh? No one. So we don't have any question. So if there is any question in the floor. There you go. Vai tu a portare. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for this presentation, Natale. I only have one question regarding the training in the open category. You said that there's a limited open category till 2022, 1st of July 2022. When does the training and evaluation in the open category have to comply with this new regulation? Is it 2020 entry into application, 2021 end of the certificate according to national regulation, or 2022 end of the limited open category?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a good point. So we expect that by July 2020, so the training will not be ready available. So little by little, you need to organize yourself. And we have a requirement that by July 2021, you need to be able to convert all authorization and all certificates, also for training, given under the national regulation, to be converted to the European regulation. So you will need to find what is the gap. So these are the 3 steps. So the first step, 2021, you convert everything. Then you have one additional year to allow this operation in the limited open category with the training that you identified under your regulation that are still filling the European scope. And then by July 2022, everything should be aligned with the regulation in the open category. There was another question. Yeah.
Hello. I have a question regarding the transitional period. So, for example, if I buy, let's say, DJI Mavic tomorrow, and it currently doesn't have a CE marking,
Yep.
and the transitional period passes, so it's, let's say, 2nd of July 2022. Is there a possibility for the manufacturers to proclaim those drones who are manufactured earlier to be compliant with the CE marking, or let's say with some C classes?
So I think that we will see in the next presentation that there are some requirements to be complied with, and I don't think, maybe Antonio then will maybe answer at the end of the presentation. I don't think that you can show compliance with the requirements that we have in the regulation if you did not design since the beginning the drone according to those requirements. So I don't think it is an option.
So you think so? It's isn't it a really hard punch as a commercial, from the commercial aspect for the manufacturers? In my opinion, this means that it doesn't make any sense to buy a drone in the next 2 years.
Actually, as I told you, you can still use these drones in the category C3. For example, if it's about 250 grams, so you can use in the category A3.
Yes, of course. But for example, if I want to film people or some, not over people, but let's say close to people, and my drone is, let's say I give 1,500 euros for a drone, it doesn't make sense. I can use it only for 2 years.
You can still use also in the specific category, and we are going to develop some standard scenario and predefined risk assessment will depends on the level of risk to facilitate this activity, because we already had the same question from in the past, so we already plan to develop some simplified procedures in the specific category that will allow you to use drones that are without a C marking, but then we need to identify what are the operational requirements that we may add in order to compensate the lack of the technical requirements on the C mark, on the drone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So another question, then we'll see on the slide.
Just a very small question about what is the definition of a toy, to clearly understand a toy and not.
There is a clear definition because there is a toy directive. So when you buy a toy, you will see that on the package and also on the declaration that is attached to the toy is written that the product is compliant with the toy directive. Now, on my mind, I don't remember the number of the directive. Then when you see that it's compliant with this directive, then it's a toy. And we have a definition. So this definition is included in our regulation. So this is something that should be very clear. So why not doing the registration at purchase of the drone? Yeah, this was one of the options, but there was a discussion at European Parliament level when what we call basic regulation that define the competency between Europe and member states. During the discussion, there was an agreement between the Parliament and the member state that drones doesn't need to be registered. So we could not then make any change because we have a mandate from the Parliament to write the regulation, and we need to follow that mandate. So within the mandate, we could not make any requirement for registering a drone. Why not a central EU website for registration? Also, this one was a big discussion during the development, and the responsibility of registration is for the member state, because the registration is not only for safety, it's also for security. And especially for drones, the security agency are quite sensitive to them. So there was the request by the member state to keep control of the registration. So what we did, so we kept the registration at member state level, but we developed a system through the EASA website that will ensure the interoperability between all database in different countries. So when a police here in Holland will detect my drone that is registered in Germany, so will detect my registration number, or real time, it will be able to interrogate the Netherlands database that will be immediately linked to the EASA website to the German database and retrieve immediately my information, and he will know that if I'm legal or not, if I'm registered, and what are the authorization that I have. How do we guarantee unique numbering and how to revoke also identities? Yeah, so we had a task force made of member states that work together in order to have the same format of the registration, the operator registration number. The format will be the first three digit will be the identification of the country, and then will be additional 12 digits that will be provided by the country itself. So this means that since we have the 3 digit identify the country, there will be always different numbers between two operator registered in the 2 member states. How the enforcement of these rules will look like, how to ensure that people will follow these rules. First of all, we need to do safety promotion. And we are starting, we started since several months, to coordinate the activity with the member state. The problem is that we have new actors, as you know, I think we said that several times. So we need to find a way to reach those people, and especially we have very young people. This is why we had the small video that we showed you yesterday to address especially the teenagers, young people that are going to use these small drones. So first of all, we need to make sure that everybody is aware of what are the rules. And as I told you, the first thing that you will see when you open the box is this leaflet that gives you the information of what you can do, what you cannot do, and what are the links to receive the training, the registration, and all the basic information. And then the enforcement authority, through the drone identification system, they can identify if the drone is registered. They may have also the information about the authorization that they can have. Then they can ask to the pilot if they have the training or not. Okay, so the last question, and we go to the next point. What is the life cycle of the identities, and what are the state responsibility of the identity management? Identities, maybe you can clarify what you mean the life cycle of identities. So if we are talking about the registration, so everybody can detect, we allow everybody to detect the registration number, because if I see a drone close to my window, I need to detect that number, go to the police and tell them that at this time, drone XYZ was spying me. I will not be able to identify the name behind this number. The police will do. So this information will be stored on the national database, and we have requirements. We left as requirements to the member state to define how long this information will be valid. So when you need to renew your registration, because we know that several times you may receive a drone for Christmas, then until the 5th of January you play with it, and then kids they throw away the drone. They go to another toy. So sometimes you have the registration number, but then it's not used anymore. So each member state has the responsibility to identify how long this information is valid, and when you need to renew the registration, and then in case I think that they will delete the data. But this will be done by each member state, and also they will apply all the GPDR regulation to make sure that all information are safe. Okay.
Just a small comment, if I may. Sorry. It's just to react on something you said about buying a drone right now when you have no CE marked. I don't know who raised this question. Yeah. You said that we could address that through the specific category, PDRA, and so on. I think there's a risk behind that. It's we can't imagine having as a NAA to approve the hundreds of thousands of operations that would be expected in the open category on an operation per operation basis. So even if from a regulatory point of view your answer is satisfying, I alert you to the fact that the NAA are not really ready to do so and don't have the resources right now to do so.
Yeah, this is why I said standard scenario pre-flight risk assessment, because it can be a standard scenario where you can just have a declaration without the request from the member state to give it authorization. Yeah, something that we'll consider. Thank you. Okay, so we can move to the next topic, that is the technical requirements. So give to Antonio.
Thank you, Natale. Okay, so good afternoon. Natale has given you a very good big picture, and this is a slide actually to connect with the presentation of Natale. He spoke to you about how we mitigate privacy risk, safety risk, security risk, and environmental risk by means of operational constraints from one side. He mentioned some technical requirements and pilot competencies. Now we are going to focus more in this presentation on the technical requirement of the UAS. These are included in specifically the annex to the delegated act, while the big picture, let's say, is more linked to the implementing act of the regulation. So in the presentation we have tried to present the technical requirements, actually the most important ones, linking them, showing them if they are more linked to ground risk, to mitigate ground risk, or air risk, or both of them. For every technical requirement, we report, as you see, the marking of the class of the drone to which that specific technical requirement is applicable. First of all, of course, maximum takeoff max or maximum transmitted energy. You see the subdivision. Actually, here is actually subdivided according to the class, up to 250 grams C0. C1 has 900 grams, but also an alternative of 80 joules of transmitted energy as a maximum to a human on ground. Then C2, 4 kilograms maximum takeoff mass, and 25 kilograms for C3 and C4. We see then the be designed and constructed to minimize injury to people. Let's say while the first requirement of the maximum takeoff mass and maximum transmitted energy in particular is more focused on limiting the so-called blunt trauma, which is mostly linked with energy transmitted to a person hit by the drone. The be designed and constructed to minimize injury to people is more linked to what can be called lacerating injury, meaning part of the drones which, at the moment in which a drone hits a human being, can produce cuts, which can lead to perhaps in some cases just pain, in other cases need of a doctor. This is in fact the subdivision that you find in the draft standards that are being developed. In fact, I should say, to clarify the picture, that each of these requirements that I am going to list is currently undergoing a standardization effort in terms of which standard will be demonstrated in order to demonstrate the compliance to the requirement. This is in particular what Christophe will address later. So then we have low speed mode, limiting the maximum speed to 3 meters per second. This you have to see linked to the C2 class, because in that case, while let's go back to the 250 grams C0. In that case, C0 can fly over people, although not on gatherings of people. We say that the C1 can fly occasionally on people, meaning that it can happen, according to the regulation, that a class 1 drone flies over isolated people, but then the situation needs to be resolved and the operator, the pilot, needs to steer away. In the case of the 4 kilogram C2, it cannot fly over people, but can fly near to people. But in order to mitigate this, the fact that the drones eventually can hit the person on ground, it must be limited to a maximum speed of 3 meters per second. Okay, thinking of a multicopter. Then we go to the warning when battery reaches low level. You see, applicable to C1, C2, and C3. Of course, this is also linked to the ground risk, because when the battery reaches a low level, the danger is that the drones will fall and hit somebody. So this slide was for the requirement dedicated to the ground risk specifically. For the air risk, actually, only for air risk, we can identify this requirement, because you will see that the next slide reports requirement which address both ground and air risk. If you want to see, we want to find a requirement actually very much linked to air risk, this is the one. Be equipped with a system that limits height above surface or takeoff point to 120 meters or to a selectable value. So in this case, as Natale explained, you must remember that there is the operational constraint. So it is, in any case, responsibility of the operator, independently from the technical requirement, to keep it under 120 meters from the surface. But we also added, as a further mitigation, a technical requirement for the drones. The reason why you see surface or takeoff point is that we couldn't, after discussions, of course, impose a system for every drone of the classes that you see there that would automatically limit the height above the surface, which changes. You would need some specific system like a radar altimeter to check height from ground. It is not actually feasible for every drone. So what you find is height above surface or the takeoff point, which is much more feasible. To 120 meters, or it can always be possible to a selectable value, remembering that it is responsibility of the operator to comply to operational constraints with regard to height. And then other requirement, ground and air is together. The maximum speed in level flight of 19 meters per second for C0 and C1. Okay, this you could see it more actually linked to the ground, a bit more to the ground risk, because in any case we are not going to limit the C2 apart from the cases of being capable to fly near people, or the C3. You find this 19 meters per second for C0 and C1, and actually the 19 meters per second comes from the reasoning which led to the 900 establishment of the 900 gram after some calculation for class 1 in consideration of a drone of 900 grams that falls with a terminal speed. And therefore, if you make some calculation, that actually you find also in some accompanying document to the regulation, you come up to 19 meters per second for a limit over the maximum speed in order to preserve this kind of energy and maximum weight. Then be safely controllable with regards to stability, maneuverability, and C2-link performance. To control a drone, you need it to be stable. You need to be sufficiently maneuverable, but you also need the C2-link. Natale explained you that autonomous operations are forbidden in the open category. And so you need the C2-link, and you need it to perform appropriately. In case of C2-link loss, have the reliable and predictable method to recover C2-link or terminate the flight. Actually, the requirement has been cut. It's longer than that. There is a second part of the requirement which expresses the fact that the flight must be terminated in a way that preserves safety for the third parties. So we cut the requirement, we cut the safety part, but it is included. Then we have the geo-awareness system for C1, C2, and C3. If you go through the requirement, this is a synthesis of the requirement, you will find that it needs to have an interface to upload geographical zone data, so the information about which geographical zones are basically, let's say in the simplest of the cases, forbidden to drones, and therefore the operator will need to know that he or she is approaching a forbidden zone. The warning, in fact, to advise the operator in case of potential breach of airspace. The information on the system status and correct operation. And then a smooth interaction with the flight control computer if the geofence is implemented, because this is the geo awareness, and as a geo awareness is not supposed to automatically block or constrain the flight of the drone. But if it is implemented like a geofencing, then of course it has to have a appropriately smooth interaction with the flight control. Of course, you see, these requirements are, while I explain them at a certain level, then they have to be expressed in terms of standards, performance standards and test standard, which is what the subgroups under ASD-STAN are developing in order to demonstrate compliance to the requirement. Then we have mechanical strengths, and where appropriately stability to withstand stress without breakage, deformation that might interfere with the safe flight. Going on, we have the quite important, and we shift here to security. Until now, we had ground and air risk. Now, this slide is dedicated to two requirements which are more linked to security. First of all, the direct remote identification system broadcasting, which requires that what is broadcasted by the drone is the UAS operator registration number. Natale explained you that most of the operator will have to be registered, and this registration number will have to be broadcasted as part of the direct remote identification. And also the unique serial number of the main aircraft, which is according to a standard specified in the Delegated Act. Also the timestamp and the geographical position and the timestamp associated with the geographical position, and the height above the surface or the takeoff point, depending on which is calculated. The route course and ground speed, the geographical position of the remote pilot or the takeoff point. So these are all data which have to be transmitted, broadcasted within this direct remote identification system. One thing that needs to be highlighted is that the operator will insert his registration number in the drone, but the drone will need to carry out the verification of the validity, verifying the checksum of this registration number. The protocol which will be used is an open protocol, and data needs to be able to be received directly by existing mobile devices. We are adopting some standards to implement this direct remote identification system, which really is looking at the possibility to include most mobile devices. And depending on the mobile devices, you have situation you have, for example, Wi-Fi aware, which is implemented by Android, but it's not implemented by iOS. And in that case, we need to go to the Bluetooth, which for Apple devices, to include all of them. Finally, this direct remote identification system can be provided with an add-on module, which is its own part dedicated in the Delegated Act. The second requirement which we see linked to security is a part of the lights requirement, which be equipped with at least one green flashing light for the purpose of conspicuity of the unmanned aircraft at night. So this green flashing light will show that it is not a manned aircraft. It will clearly be recognized as a drone. and will be seen at night. And the purpose is actually security. Another part of the light requirement is for controllability, not shown here. Finally, we have environment, and we can remind two requirements. The one about noise, which says that the weighted sound power level, this LWE is the weighted according to the human sensibility of the human here. And in the delegated act, in the delegated act, you find this part 13 and part 15 that tells you how to measure and which levels are appropriate. And eventually be powered by electricity. You see C0, C1, C3, C2, and C3. So in this case, only electricity. It excluded C4. C4 is mostly for model aircraft. In that case, it's the security, the electrical requirement. Purely being electrical is not imposed. So this was the, let's say, we cover probably 90%, 80-90% of requirements, the most important ones, I believe. And finally, a slide about the assessment of conformity to requirements. If you go through the delegated acts and the annexed delegated acts, you will find that there are 3 procedures possible. These are called modules. And of course are already implemented by current market regulation, which is the market mechanism that we are importing in our drone regulation in order to prove these technical requirements. So for C0, C4, and for the direct remote identification add-on, you can, a manufacturer, can just use the so-called module A, which is called internal production control, according to which the manufacturer will produce, develop technical documentation, which demonstrate the compliance to the requirement. In this case, it's mostly a declaration. There is no notified body involved here. And the harmonized standards, the one being developed, are mandatory for using module A. In the other cases, you see there's all the other classes. You can use, the manufacturer can use other module B plus C. This is an EU type examination, so with the involvement of the notified body, followed by conformity to type based on internal production control again. And in this case, of course, it will be much better to use harmonized standard where available, because they will, in any case, constitute a presumption of conformity at the moment in which it is demonstrated through the technical documentation developed that they have been matched. This will produce automatically a presumption of conformity toward the requirement. If you don't use the harmonized standard, then you will have to do it in some other way, but it is not just a declaration, it will have to be checked by notified bodies. And module H, conformity based on full quality assurance. So this is a module which is more focused on the proper quality assurance and the processes of the company in terms of design and production. And again, here harmonized standards again should be used as a presumption of conformity. And I think this was the last slide of the presentation. Yeah. Okay. So let me see.
We have some questions. To the first question, the integration. The priority will be always given to the aircraft with people on board. We have a specific requirements that in the open category, the remote pilot needs always to give the precedence to another flight with a person on board. So it's the responsibility of the pilot in the open category to make sure that it doesn't pose a risk to manned aircraft. So it's already in our regulation.
Should we go to the second one? Will you ensure that citizens will not have to cover the insurance or malfunction with drones in open areas which are situated under busy drone paths? The insurance, if we are talking of the insurance of the drone, this is left to the national regulation to cover.
Yeah, so the insurance, you may be aware that there is a European regulation that imposes insurance to all models that are above 20 kilo. So we can interpret model as all drones. So all drones that are about 20 kilos, the insurance is mandated by the European regulation. Below 20 kilos, it is the responsibility of the member state. We know that I think that all member states impose a liability insurance, and as a matter of fact, when you register yourself, one of the field that you need to also include is the registration, the number of your insurance. So even if we don't mandate in our regulation that if you are operating a small drone, you need to be insured, we know that member state will impose it, so you need to write the insurance number in the registration. So it's covered by each member state.
So for the height limit is set to 120 meters. What about flying in mountains where within the seconds the drone could fly from 10 meters ground to 500 meters? This is it's more related to the operational constraint. This is really left to the operator as a responsibility. Because actually in the mountains, yes, it's true that you can pass from very different height and very quickly, and it will be responsibility of the operator to ascertain the profile.
So maybe I can show this is a slide that I had on backup. So if you are flying in a hilly environment, you need to use this kind of approach. So the requirements ask you to fly 120 meter distance from ground. So the distance needs to follow the orography of the area where you're flying. So it's like this one. So this means that in this condition here, this is the 120 meter around the orography. If you are flying here, you may be actually higher than 120 meters from the bottom of the valley. So we allow this kind of operation. And it is the responsibility of the remote pilot to make sure that he's flying within this curve. And we think that this approach is safe because anyway, manned aircraft will always fly above the highest obstacle that is in the area. And in addition, since we are talking about this one, you can also, if there is an obstacle higher than 120 meters, you are allowed to fly 50 meters higher than the obstacle, but only if there is an explicit request from the owner of the obstacle. This means that I cannot fly over this windmill just for fun. If I'm asked to do some kind of inspection by the owner of the windmill, then I can fly there. I need to demonstrate in case of accident or case of inspection that I had the authorization to fly there.
Do the drone needs to have lights on at day as well? I think we do one day for nights. It's written only for nights.
The requirement is to have the lights for night only.
How do you know when we'll get unique electronic ID working with remote identification if an operator is obliged to register only herself? The operator will register and will obtain a unique identification number, registration number, and then that will be, as we said, will be transmitted by the drone. But the drone will also provide with the remote identification the unique serial number. So it's all supposed to be unique unless, of course, some attempts to go around the law can always be thought, but...
So the message that I register myself, and then if I have five drones, I upload my registration number of each drone. So each drone will always broadcast my registration number, but in addition, will broadcast also the unique serial number of the drone. So we can still identify each single drones, but then from a security point of view, the important thing that the owner, who is responsible for the operation, is identified, and this is through my operator registration number.
The breakability of the drone. So perhaps I should say that we are actually going to develop a research project more related with the collision with aircraft, related with drone collision with aircraft, which is supposed to toward the end of the project to define better ways to design drones for breakability or frangibility, if you want to call it, or energy absorption. Now, that was not included as a requirement. We included, of course, everything about the maximum takeoff mass for blunt trauma, and we included the cutting, everything about the cutting edge, but about the frangibility, we didn't include it because the way of complying with such a requirement, even if we could have had a draft of requirement, were not considered mature yet. It might be included in the future if we will find a proper way, especially through this research project. And I should underline that in this research project we want to include all interested parties, so there will be something that will have to be shared by drone communities as well as aircraft manufacturer and aircraft operators and so on.
I think that we can move to the last part, then we will have time for all other questions when needed.
Okay, let's follow. So, good afternoon. So I will take over the last part of this presentation, and I will follow the presentation made by Natale and Antonio. So you have seen all the expectation regarding the technical requirement, so more exactly operational requirement, training requirement, and technical requirement. Now let's have a look on what will be possible and how we will support the industry actually to be in conformity with this technical requirement. So where are coming from this work? So we can say that all the products to put on the market and the European market, so regarding the impact of safety, so will be possible unless it's CE marked. So CE marking is the key, as you understood, the key point in this approach. So we are coming from we are focusing, of course, on delegated regulations. It's exactly where we are sourcing all the technical requirement, and we are intending to use it for the open category only for now. And what will activate our work, but we already start to work on this part. It's the standardization request. That I mean, we are acting based on the European Community mandate. So DG GROW is mainly the actor here, and we are waiting this standardization request to send Senelec at sea, which is supposed to provide this harmonized standard at the end. So let's have a look on the model. So it's a global picture. Here it's just to be sure that everybody is on the same page regarding what we are speaking about harmonized standard. So let's start from Let's start from the European Commission, so which is required, so based on the regulation, so we required the standardization to SEN etc. And SEN will deliver the harmonized standard to Europe. Where we are, so currently we are involving all the industry in this process, so involving for the CE marking definition, and of course the purpose for us is to be harmonized. So that I mean we have to involve largely the industry and to be representative of what's happened in Europe. So as it was explained, so the standard, it's the approach. It's a voluntary approach. So I mean the industry can use the European standard, but it's not fully. You have an alternative. So and Antonio referred to this point, saying, okay, you can use or not use the harmonized standard, but if you don't use it, you won't have the presumption of conformity. So it will be harder to prove your conformity to the requirement. What is important to understand that our European standard will be published at, of course, at the European Journal, and will describe all the conformity assessment, which is the purpose for the industry to apply and to, by the way, get this presumption of conformity. So this is the basis, let's say. Now, if we have to look how it will work for the CE marking process itself. So this diagram is just, so okay, it's general. So let's say it's simplified. And actually, we use it. It's something quite usual now for the people who knows and the industry who knows how it works for the RED directive, for example. You will find the same type of diagram, and it will work on the same way for the drone. So let's start from the European Commission. So we have seen that they will publish the mandate to standardization request to the group of SEN, SENELEC, etc. And here we have this entity appearing, so ASD-STAN, which is the associate body of the SEN for all the aerospace standards development. So SEN will publish harmonized standard at the end, and the European Commission is asking for this harmonized standard. Now, if we look on the manufacturer side, what will be for him to apply for the CE marking? First of all, so we recommend, and it will certainly be beneficial for the main manufacturer to participate to the definition of the standard. Of course, it's coming from the industry. So, if you want to be in conformity with the standards, it's always better to participate to the development. So, this is the current process. We are working on this currently. After that, to get this CE marking, so you have seen also on the slide of Antonio, the last slide, so with the module, you can partly apply for the module A, for example, or you will have to go to a notified body for the module B and C, which will provide the test and verification for the conformity. And you will get the CE markings, or the manufacturer will get the CE marks for the equipment. Of course, the notified body, which has to be identified and get the credential, it will get it from the member state, and it will be based. It will follow, of course, the regulation, the 945. Sorry. So you will have so CE marking and declaration of conformity, and the equipment will be on the market at that point. If we look now on the side of the market surveillance, of course, if you put your product on the CE mark on the market, it has to be controlled in some way. So here we will have the control of this part will be done by the surveillance market authorities. So I put to be done because it's not yet in place, but it will be on the responsibility of the member state to organize this part. So it will happen. So certainly something relative to at the European level, we will have this what we call ADCO. So it's an administrative cooperation group, which will be managing also this part with the member state for the market surveillance. And certainly we'll have also this part of implementation committee, which will be represented by public and stakeholder, working with the European Commission to organize what is going on the market surveillance part. So this is a global organization of the CE marking process, how it will be, because it's not fully implemented yet, but it's basically what will happen. Now let's have a look on how it is organized at the level of the actor for the standardization. Here I put everything, the national part, the European part, and the international. So it's a kind of levels. And the first level, so you will find, so at the nationals, you have all the standardization entity existing. So for France, it's AFNOR, but the delegation with BNAE for the aeronautic and space activity, DIN in Germany, BSI in UK, and so on. So at the national level, they'll contribute actually for the European level. And they provide actually the expert for the European layer, which is organized by the STAN, which is the Committee for the European Norm, which act ASD-STAN as associate body for all the development of the aerospace standard. And we have a specific work group named D5, so domain 5 for work group 8, identified at UAS, working on this topic. I put the international level because we have to consider it also and to keep in mind that we have some liaison with ISO. ISO is working also on drone, as you probably know, and the technical committee is 20, and the committee, standard committee is 16, with name same thing, UAS, and it's a. And I haven't put all the work group identified in ISO. But you can see all the things are linked, and we are, let's say, working in collaboration and cooperation also. A few words about ASD-STAN, because probably I don't know if you have a clear view of what is ASD-STAN. ASD-STAN is a non-profit organization. It's this entity is working essentially for provide to the European norm for the SEN. And it's so as I repeat, it's we call it associate body for the SEN. And clearly, we focus on providing this European norm, but we have some intermediate steps so to achieve this point. So we have the first step is what we call the PRN publication, so preliminary European norm, which basically is exactly the content of the European norm you will find after the publication of SEN. But it's not direct. We have to enter in different type of process, and so I will show you. I will go fast on this part because it's just to make you understand who we are and what is the actor inside the ASD-STAN. So you can see here is a list of the members of the ASD-STAN. So mainly industry, of course, but also national standardization bodies from different member states, and also public institutions. So how does it work when we produce this standard? First step, we provide the PRN process. So we enter with a new work proposal, which is quite usual for all the standardization process. So we start from a project. We have more or less 1 month of ballot to adopt this project, and after we start the development. So here it's let's say the normal timing or time frame for the production of the PRN, which is at the end of the full process. I mean, I will go fast on this. You will have some question if you want after. But the purpose is to publish so the PRN into more or less 6 months if it's regular. After this step, the PRN has to be transformed in EN, sorry, and this part is more formal. It's not technical, no longer. So we are not supposed to get back on the technical specification and all the testing method development, but we have to consider this time. It's let's say it's not compressible time, so it's more or less 8 months of process with some control, some ballot, and it's clearly confirms that we have the good standard for the harmonized European norm. So it's written here. We are not supposed to have technical change at this level, because if we have to change something, we will have to redo everything. So restarting the PRN process, which will be too long, certainly, for the industry to wait. So how it is organized, actually, the work. So we have, as I explained, so we have a specific work group, so the D5WG8, which is, of course, complying with the STAN expectation and STAN, let's say, basis and to work. So principle of openness, so principle of transparency, of consensus, and ensuring harmonization, and addressing all the interested parties. So the purpose is clearly to involve everybody concerned by the subject and to listen to everybody and letting the voice for the industry and to be sure that everybody will be okay and happy with the standard at the end. How it is organized clearly internally. So we have organized different subgroup, and so if we look at the first levels, because as I understand it's at the European level, we work on the different country, member states, who provide the national work group. So we source the information directly from each national entity. And but we have understood that it wasn't not so efficient at the beginning, and we organized so recently, so since September, we changed a little bit our way to work, and we organize also technical subgroups, so to be more efficient. So let's say we know that the adoption of the regulation is already in place, so we have to be fast. Okay, we have a time frame limited, and we have to be at the rendezvous for the standard delivery. So we have 6 work groups. So with I have put the name or the title of each work group. You can see, and you can have in mind the different technical requirements introduced before. So you will see the direct remote identification, which is a specific part related to some, let's say, other links or other liaison with other entity. So we isolate this part. Geo-awareness also is the same thing. We are working with Eurocay, for example, on these 2 topics, but also at the international level with STM. And for the others are covering mainly all the classes of the delegated act. What we will deliver at the end, so we identify, it's already identified. So clearly, if we have the European norm at the end, it will be this series. So we name it 4709, and we have identified 4 parts. First part will be product and verification. Second part will be focused on direct remote identification. Third part on geo-awareness, and the last one, and the 4, will be on the lighting requirement. Just to have a look what we have in it. So we have to specify technically what and to translate what is a technical requirement in the delegated act. And we are looking to, for example, this type of features, so follow me, controllability, injuries, flammability. So we pass over all these type of topics, by specifying technically the requirement and providing the test method related to this requirement, by keeping in mind that test method has to be descriptive, clear, objective, and so we don't want to also to have industry impact, let's say, for the financial part at this level. So we have to provide something equilibrate at this level. Just for recap, this table is introducing what I said about the 4709. So we have 4 European norms at the end. This is the target, so we have to deliver it by June 2020 for all the 4 European norms, and the transformation will happen certainly beginning of 2021. You have the 2 last rows, so what we call the technical report. We identified technical report because we estimate that it will be important for the industry also to have this information related to the noise approach, because you have seen in the Delegated Act, it's already a standard refer, but we have some specific behavior, specific context, how to test the drone. So it could be important to have this part of information and technical report will certainly be used as a guideline also for the industry. And we have the same thing for the ground collision severity evaluation, which will be supporting the development of the standard mainly for the 80 joule and all the MTOM topic to explain how it will be dangerous or not to fly the drone. Other way to explain the time frame, so more linked to what you have already seen in the previous slide. So this is the timeline for the regulation, and I put where we will have our milestone for the standard. So standard development is in progress. We are supposed to finish the draft by beginning of next year. After that, we will enter in the ballot period. It's the 3 months ballot period. After that, we have to have the resolution of all the comments. If we have a ballot, of course, we will receive a lot of comments. I hope not too much, because more comments in more time. And after that, we will enter in the PRN publication. The blue part will be, let's say, the more administrative, and so for the technical part point of view, we are supposed to finish at this point. So, thank you, and it was my last slide. So, if you have questions, I think we have 3 minutes.
Okay. Maybe we can stay 5 minutes then more. Okay, so we have some question on Slido. What is the timeline for the drone aircraft collision research project? Maybe here, Antonio, you have some. Yeah. Can you take the microphone? Antonio, microphone.
We're going to select the project very early January. We expect to begin in February already, and it will last 3 years, 2 + 1. The first 2 dedicated actually to the drone collision with aircraft modeling, development, and experimentation. And the last year developed, as I told you, to better way of design drone for frangibility, let's call it like that.
Okay, next question. Is there a minimum resolution of camera from which obligatory registration in the open category below 250 grams is applicable? You want to answer, Antonio? Is a camera?
The resolution of camera, no, I think we took away any resolution from it was there in the requirement in the beginning, but then after several discussions, we took away any reference to resolution of the camera. So if there is a camera, then you are supposed to.
Also, because we have on the market now cameras that are very cheap and very, very powerful. So doesn't make any sense. Can current drones on the market receive a C mark for the required class afterwards? What will be the process behind? How will the drone get the C label? Maybe you can ask.
Yeah, I think you have already answered a little bit, but okay, just to say that we don't have this plan to have the C marking afterwards. So it depends of the manufacturer if he wants to go after that. But anyway, it will be quite difficult, and as Natale explained, so it's not in the plan to have this clearly this post C mark process.
So what about cybersecurity, e.g. firmware update? Antonio, you want to answer to this one?
Well, in our requirement, we have, I didn't report it in the list of requirement, but we have a requirement that although doesn't mention cyber, require for the safe security system which which prevent actually the drones to be inappropriately modified or taken control by third parties.
So I guess this one is for
when
me.
Will the C standard?
Yeah, so you have seen, probably the question was asked before the last slides. Just to comment regarding for the industry, you don't have to wait to see the EN publication, of course. As soon as you have the draft and the PRN, more exactly, publication, which will happen to mid of next year. So as I explained, so technical content will be the same. So you can start to work with this document and use it as a reference.
Then we have two questionnaires for you.
Yes, so do we accept comments outside of ASD members? As soon as the process is quite simple. You have to register in one way. Everybody can comment, can participate. It's not locked to everybody. The unique things we ask is to know who is commenting. So you have to enter in process of identification, registration. It could be with your local, national standardization body, or it could be directly with the ASD-STAN. So if you have some question and really some issue to be in touch with the ASD-STAN, so please get back to me and I will comment in detail. But of course, the answer is yes, it's open to everybody. And the last point, no security subgroup. Yes, we have one. It's the direct remote identification. It's only linked to security. Probably the question has to be a little bit extended or the detail because I'm not sure to understand exactly what is behind this question.
So maybe we can say that the requirements that we developed. So we are since they were developed by EASA, and the EASA is the responsible for safety. So we focus on safety, but during the development, we liaise with enforcement authority and privacy authority as well to understand what were the input that we need to have in our regulation in order to accommodate the other requirements. And the target identification is one of the requirements that is mostly based on security, especially the direct remote identification, because this is the way the enforcement authority will be able to understand if when they see a drone flying, this is legal or not. There are some other requirements that affect also security, like the lights requirements. We modified what was our initial requirements to make sure that the remote pilot, the police on ground is able to differentiate when you see something that is approaching, if it is an aircraft, manned, or if it is a drone. So this is why now we're asking for this green flashing light that will identify that it is a drone. So the only clear requirement that is related to security is that remote identification. This is why that group is the one that is more dealing with security.
And last, you could answer also, but okay. It's related to remote ID. So as soon as you don't enter through the full process of registration and providing to the drone when you initialize it the first time with the correct operator ID, the drone won't be able to broadcast the information. So it will be visible that it will be a rogue's UAV.
Yeah, and in addition, I want to say that the registration system, when you register yourself, will give you your registration number, but in addition, will give you 3 secret number and a checksum code. So only if you have the full string and you put on the drone will accept the registration number. If you don't have the full string, the drone will never upload your number. And so the aircraft, so as I said, we are not saying that the aircraft will not be able to take off if the registration number is not uploaded, but then we'll fly with an empty registration number. So the police will see that there is something flying with that may be a threat in that case. Okay, so I think that we are just 5 minutes after the schedule. I hope that we gave you a good overview of the activity in the open category, and all this material will be also available on the website. And in addition, on the EASA website, little by little, we will populate with safety promotion material that everybody can download, then can be helpful for you, can be helpful also for the member state in order to give this information to everybody. So thank you for our colleague that provided the presentation. Thank you to you for the participation. Now we can have a break, and the next topic will be here. We'll talk about U-Space, and we start in half an hour, so at 1600. Okay, bye.